Welcome to the 18th episode of the GameFor Podcast. In this episode, we will talk about how to get started with role-playing games. I'm Adam.
I'm Matt.
And we are part of the team at Milk Can. And we make an app called GameFor for connecting tabletop gamers. It's for iOS, Android. It's on the web. We're adding more features every day. We'll be talking about a big new feature in an upcoming episode, but not particularly this episode. And it's a great thing for finding people to play with in your area, stores, especially when you're traveling, you know, that kind of stuff, and clubs and groups and conventions, all kinds of things like that. So, what have we personally been doing lately?
Oh, what have we been
since the
doing?
last episode?
Yeah. So I think I'm a little loud. Hopefully, I'm not blasting people.
No, I don't think so.
All right. So I've started another RPG because I need more RPGs in my life.
Running an RPG, not
Actually,
not
I'm
designing
playing this one. Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Right. Play. So it's a Lancer called Lancer RPG.
I don't think I'm familiar with Lancer.
Yeah, it's kind of reminds you a little bit of like Mech Warrior, BattleTech.
Like a sci-fi thing.
Yeah, sci-fi. You've got mechs. But yeah, it's kind of neat. So far, we've only had kind of our session 0 where we kind of rolled our characters, looked at some of the new player stuff. I believe it was a Kickstarter. So
session 0 is kind of RPG talk for the before the thing starts, but when you're getting everybody
to kind
on
of
the
make
same
sure
page.
everybody, like, you know, you don't have everybody playing the exact same character.
So not everybody's a fighter. Or something
Right,
like that.
more rounded understanding, kind of maybe how we met.
Okay.
You know, the GM kind of feels out who people are, what they want to do, what everybody's looking for to get out of the game.
It's not generally a play session.
Right.
Gotcha.
That's why it's kind of the 0.
Gotcha.
Yep. But yes, tomorrow I should be on session 1. So.
And you guys are playing this completely online?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And so how's that working out? Like, what are you guys using for that?
For
and
this
by
one,
online, I don't mean a video game. I mean
right. Yeah, we're using Discord. And for this one, I don't believe we need any kind of.
Wearing my Discord T-shirt today. Yeah.
I think we're not doing anything with regards to like map playing fighting. I think it's all theater of the mind. So I think that's all we're using. Is
just Discord talking,
our voices,
dice.
and then our character sheets and stuff.
We're assuming that everybody is on the same page as far as like no, I seem to have rolled another 20. It's amazing.
Right.
That kind of thing. It's not,
yeah. It's no fun to cheat. Yeah.
Honor system, as it were.
Yeah.
Gotcha. But there are systems out there for that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah.
Okay. We may talk about it a little bit further on.
We might.
Yeah.
And then also priming. Lots of priming. So my Reaper bones, some of my miniatures, when I primed them the first time, because the Reapers are white and I was using white priming, it was easy to find that I misbought. So there was a couple that when I started to paint, I realized that as I was going, all of a sudden my paint wasn't sticking, adhering, and I was like, oh, and then I looked, under like a nice bright light, I was like, oh, I missed, some of the spots.
So priming your miniatures is kind of the step 1 before you start painting. It helps the paint stick to. Primer is a special type of paint that sticks to the model, and then the paint sticks to that.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. When you use white primer on a white plastic model, if you miss any spots, it's harder to notice.
Right.
So yeah, that's I generally don't prime that white. Well, I take that back. I don't generally prime white specifically. I will use white primer sometimes as a secondary primer. So I'll spray the entire model black or dark gray, and then spray white just from above. But yeah, that's kind of the thing that can work out relatively well to kind of give. It almost looks like the model then gets lit from above, and there's a bunch of processes with that. But just straight white, I almost never do. But then again, I also I started with a black and a white because that was all that Hobby Lobby or what I had for my airbrush, because I'm just starting out with airbrushing. But yeah, so I did pick up some gray this week. I ordered some gray. So I think that I do wonder sometimes because now the Reaper Bones folks have got this new kind of line of Reaper Bones that are like a dark gray plastic, and I almost wonder if it's maybe to help with priming a little bit, or if I mean, it could be a different material, and that is decided to differentiate themselves. But
yeah. So I did quick touch-ups of all the spots on the ones I found I missed, so that I can then get those painted, and then my Plague Marines kill team that I talked about a little bit last time. So I got those primed, and Minuteman miniatures. I had my a little sergeant lead hero guy for Shattered Crown that I'm going to be painting up. So
Minuteman Miniatures is a company that we came across first 2018, I think.
Yeah, because it was at Nexus, I believe.
Yeah, it was at this convention that we had a booth at in Milwaukee, Nexus Game Fair, and they were a couple booths down from us, and they use a Kinect, which is a kind of a weird 3D scanner thing that was supposed to attach to your Xbox. And they use that and some special software, and they scan your head.
Right.
And then they can put your head on all
Miniatures.
kinds of different miniatures. So you've got a guy on a horse, or is it just
it's just a World War II.
World War One.
Yeah, it's Shattered Crown's World War One, but because it's weird, I'm using he didn't have World War One guys. I'm using World War II, and the British guys are pretty synonymous. And then I could also use it for like Conflict 47 and stuff like that. So,
but you've got this. So now he's got your head though.
He's got my head.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, they 3D print them using resin, like a high end, like I think Form 2 printers and stuff, and they print them out and they ship them off, which is really cool.
How about you?
Well, I just got back from sunny Las Vegas. I mean, it was technically sunny, I guess. It wasn't too cloudy. It didn't rain, so that was nice. It was about mid 60s Fahrenheit, which was sort of nice since it was kind of snowy here. But I just got back from Las Vegas from the Las Vegas Open, which is a tabletop miniatures convention. It's primarily a series of large tournaments. There is one of the largest, I assume, I could be wrong on that, but one of the largest 40K tournaments out there, Warhammer 40,000. I talked to one of the guys that was helping to run it. He said they were just shy of 800 people.
That's insane.
Now, that's not the convention. The convention was probably closer to 3,000.
Right.
But that convention, just that tournament, was nearly 800 people.
That's crazy. So almost 1 in 4, 1 in 3 people.
Well, and also think about it. If you're going to have 400 people playing, if you're going to have almost 800 people playing, you have to have nearly 400 tables.
Wow. Yeah.
And all the terrain for it, and the whole deal. I mean, because you don't do them in shifts. It's like everybody plays at once.
That's insane.
It was a massive, massive room
just
watching
for
the 40K tournament.
Like Adepticon has like 200 people or
Adepticon caps their 40K championship at 256.
Okay.
And then it just makes sense. And then there's a big, long waiting list of people. These guys, I'm assuming they must have a cap because they would literally run out of tables, but it's close to 800, I'm assuming. Wow, probably because it's just a massive amount of tables, a huge thing. But there was Star Wars Legion tournaments going on. There was Age of Sigmar tournaments. There was War Machine, like all kinds of different things. Smaller than that, I think I talked to Scott, who ran the Age of Sigmar tournament, the championship, and he said it was just shy of 200 people in that one. 196 or something like that. And I know they had a lot of people upstairs. It was kind of spread out, and the majority of it was all in one spot. But then there was like this upstairs, 26th floor, which was Kill Team and Horus Heresy and something else. And then on the other side of the building and up on the 3rd floor in a weird ballroom, that's where all the Star Wars, not all the Star Wars, the
Legion, the
Star Wars Legion and the Star Wars Armada was there. X-Wing was still kind of in the main convention area, but there was also Flames of War and Team Yankee. It was, it's gotten to the point now where even in a big convention center like the Bally Hotel Convention Center, Casino, whatever, this convention is using up a ton of space, like a lot of space, just because there's so many tables and stuff like that. So, but there was a vendor area, and that was kind of nice. So I bought some things. What else? I just talked to a lot of people. A lot of people came up and said hi and things like that, and so that's always nice. So far, I don't seem to have gotten sick. Knock on press board. So that's good because you shake a lot of hands and stuff like that. Plus, also, it's the coronavirus and it's Chinese New Year, and so a ton of Asian people were there, on vacation and stuff.
Right.
So
one of our employees, his wife, they went back to see her family. They do that every year,
and so they're in China.
They're in China, so they've got a 6-month-old. They have to bring home in a couple of weeks, which is going to be interesting. The flights are flying and all that stuff. So we've talked with them, and luckily they're in a kind of a small town, so they're hoping they're kind of segregated and they'll be under control by them. But
No, yeah, that'll be interesting. But so, yeah, that was good. I got back very early Monday morning, like I don't know, 2 a.m. And it was a fun convention. It's my third time there. Let's see, what else did I do, or am I about to do? I'm about to finally hop back into paint mode.
Ooh.
I've been in build mode for a long time. I built 2 war bands, kind of heavily converted them, and I'm going to I'm closer and closer to getting to the point where I'm going to start painting. I need to do some practice before I start painting on these guys.
Okay.
Because I want to use a new technique. I want to use enamel washes, and enamel washes are very different than normal acrylic washes and stuff like that. And so I don't want to just try it on these guys that I custom built. So I want to try it on some, I don't know, some old Space Marines I've got laying around the basement or something like that. So it's a different technique. You don't just put it on like a normal wash and then you leave it. It's more, I'm going to be airbrushing it on, and then it's going to cover everything. And then you give it like 30 seconds to a minute, kind of, to sort of set up a little bit, and then you take like a rag or a cloth, and then you wipe down kind of, and then that kind of helps to, like, you want
push
the guy
it off,
the figures are going to look grungy. You want that, but it's a quicker process and stuff like that. So you've already painted them.
Very cool.
Kind of.
Yeah.
You've got at least all the block colors and everything done, and then you do the spray on stuff, and so I want to practice that before I goof something up real bad.
You don't want to just start right away.
I don't.
I'm sure it'll go splendid the first time.
Right. No, absolutely. I'm sure I'll be a pro at it. But yeah, the practice is important in those kinds of things, especially when you're looking at a new technique.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I'm a terrible basement cleaner. I haven't really done much of that.
I mean, you did do quite a bit right from the start, so.
Well, but I haven't done enough. I don't know. I just feel like I'm way behind on it. But my mom's doing better. She got rid of the walker, and she's just using a cane now. So she's going up and down the stairs a little bit. She's not driving yet, but she's still a little bit nervous about
on her way, yeah.
Yeah, but she's still pretty nervous about the snow outside and stuff like that, and falling again. So she's been.
I'm nervous about that. Our parking lot is.
Yeah, our parking lot's a little bit problematic. I'm not gonna lie. So yeah, that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Nice.
There's a joke there from I want to say Austin Powers.
I think originally Airplane.
Was it? It could be. Yeah.
I'm guessing, but it wasn't Austin Powers.
Yeah, it's just this visual in my head of Mike.
No, this is me in a nutshell.
Yeah.
But yeah, I wonder if it was an Airplane first.
Yeah, it could have been.
Still a good joke.
Yeah, definitely.
Surely.
So we've got a question. You want to read the question?
Sure. So this one is from Tom.
Mm-hmm.
He says, I am a middle-aged man living in the suburbs. I've been playing RPGs for about 35 years and many war games for about 30 years.
Nice.
Lately, I find it impossible to get a reliable group for role-playing games. I can find opponents for mini war games and gateway games like Shadespire. In fact, I host a kill team day at my house every other month, and is well attended. But as soon as I try to organize an RPG with consistent attendance, things fall apart. We never get more than 2 or 3 sessions max. I understand the reasons people miss sessions. People have jobs. I do too. People have kids. People have other hobbies, interests. But maybe I'm going about scheduling this wrong. We have tried weeknights, weekends, monthly, bi-monthly, fortnightly, you name it. Any tips on building and maintaining a reliable role-playing group?
That's a tough one, and you're going to probably know better than I am because you do more role-playing, and I have done role-playing in the past.
Right, so this is,
and this is not easy. It's kind of the big problem with
role-playing. Yeah, there's memes about this everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
So, and what's funny is that last night, I accidentally missed one of my RPG nights. I got, so it was
when do you have Wednesday ones? I thought you only
Tuesday. Today's Wednesday.
Oh, that's right. Getting back in with the coming back from Vegas, I'm all screwed up.
So yeah, but I completely forgot, and I got the message, and after they were done,
after they didn't send.
Well,
they
sent it before, but it was like on Facebook, and I don't have Facebook on my phone, so I went on last night, and I'm like, so yeah, it definitely
should have sent it to you on GameFor. If they would have sent you the message on GameFor, you would have a notification.
So. But this is definitely an issue. So I'll go over kind of what I've done. I've got one group that does a pretty good job of meeting, and I've kind of honed that a little bit. I found some good ways to do that, and we'll go from there. So the first thing I recommend when you're starting a new RPG is the session 0 that we kind of talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So kind of place setting, what nights are good for people, what kind of commitments you have, what times are good. Sometimes just moving a 30 minutes one way or another can make or break a night.
And I think probably one of the most important things is, as far as time management, not time management, but time, is figuring out, is this a group that wants to try to meet once a week, like as much as possible once a week, or are they going to try to meet every 2 weeks? Is this a monthly thing?
Yeah, how much does everybody want to commit to?
Right.
And really, and the trick of all this is you really got to find the lowest common denominator. If 4 out of the 5 can meet weekly, but only one of them can only meet every 2 weeks, then you're at 2 weeks, or you're not playing with that other person.
Right, and that's also an important decision to make straight off the bat. If you've got, let's say you've got 5 people in your group, and 4 of them want to get together weekly, and one only wants to get together monthly. In my mind, you would start 2 play groups.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and there's nothing wrong with doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
No. But yeah, do that. Also, I found that don't schedule 1 out. Schedule 2 out, especially like so for my Sunday group. We don't meet every Sunday. Like we would love to. Like it's kind of a loose every 2 weeks type thing, but especially because it's Sunday. Like this Sunday we're not playing because it's Super Bowl.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
So a couple people wanted to watch that. So birthdays and all that stuff comes up. So what we usually do is kind of figure out 2 months out, and I just go, okay, which Sundays are you out for, or which Sundays are good for, and then we kind of nail it down to, okay, these 2 Sundays or these 3 Sundays in the next 2 months are what works for everybody.
Yeah. Getting back to the like, if you've got a group where you've got, let's say, 3-4 people who want to get together weekly and the other one doesn't so much, is it possible for that person who wants to get together only once in a while to play a role that kind of allows that?
Exactly. Yeah, that's another option. They could be some kind of help out the DM. They're playing maybe an NPC character that joins the party. And that's another thing I was going to bring up is decide if somebody misses or can't make it at the last minute. What's the way you're going through? Is the GM going to play the character? Is one of the other characters going to play the character? You're going to cancel and you're doing some kind of backup game or something.
I know years ago we had a group and we were playing Rollmaster and we were playing in Middle Earth. We weren't playing MERPS, which was the Middle Earth role-playing system, but we were playing anyway. We had a person, a player, who was in only once in a while because their schedule was screwy. And so they were a healer mostly.
Okay.
And when they weren't there, then the GM would just kind of not play them role-playing wise, but do their healing duties. So that's I think also a possibility. I mean, it's very difficult, I think, to try to figure out, like, in a perfect world, you can find a group where everybody's going to make it and be the same level of seriousness. But I think that understanding from the get-go what everybody's time schedule is and what everyone's seriousness is about
and know that there are going to be times that something's going to happen.
Oh, sure, there always will.
So
sometimes people forget. Sometimes something comes up.
Plan what are you doing when that happens.
Sure, sometimes people are sick.
Right.
But and then try to figure out, because
some people, like, they don't want their character to experience stuff when they're not there, and
sure.
And then others are like, well, no, I don't want to hold up the group. Go ahead.
Yeah,
I'll
exactly.
Catch up on
and
it.
That's also an important thing to understand from the get-go as well with the group, is that if you're out now, if it's in the middle of a fight, you should probably never end, if you can, during the middle of a fight.
Yeah, we generally try not to. Yeah.
So in those situations, it makes sense. Whereas, like, if you were a group and the fight's over and now you've finished in the next session, then the fighter can't make it because they're sick or whatever's going on. Then you go into town and you're doing some stuff, and the fighter is just being kind of quiet or polishing their sword or whatever the deal is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Sometimes it's kind of downtime activity.
If you've got a person in your group who wants to be in on everything at all times but can rarely ever show, that's a discussion that needs to be had.
Right.
Frankly. Yeah. So knowing that stuff, I think, up front and sitting down and actually having a discussion about it. And then if the discussion has been decided but things don't go the way that they're supposed to, like if it's like we're going to do it every 2 weeks, blah blah blah. We're gonna make all these, and then it's like a couple of them are just never showing up or always got something going on. Then things need to be modified.
Right. You either need to, exactly, meet again or something like that.
Yeah.
Another option you can do if everyone's kind of like, I don't know what my schedule's going to be like. Maybe a lot of you have part-time jobs or kids or 1,000 commitments or whatever it is. Another way you can do it is rather than having kind of a more story-based, long arc campaigns going on, you can do more of like, you're all mercenaries and kind of like the Mandalorian, you're like
an anthology.
Yeah, you're a guild and whoever shows up that night gets hired for that particular job that night.
I mean, there are a lot of independent kind of RPG game companies or RPGs that are very one-off oriented. So if you're a group who likes to get together and play, but your schedule is all over the board, then maybe a long, campaign of 5th edition D&D is not the way to go. Maybe start looking into some of the more indie role-playing games that have shorter plays or have a more of an anthology style. And then, you can get together and it's a little bit more one-off-y. You may keep using the same character, but it's more like you play one night and then there's like a definite stop.
Right. Yeah. There's a there's a reason why
can't make it next time.
Yeah. You can build that right into the story. So
yeah, definitely.
So those are kind of the tips I've kind of have come up with and read and try to incorporate that it works.
And I mean, we're going to probably talk a little bit about this in the next section a little bit also too, but the online thing is also, I think, important because sometimes you've got someone who's like, I can't come to play tonight because I've got to watch my child and my spouse is gone or whatever the deal might be. I can't leave the house, but I could still technically play. Well, then there's no reason not to have that person phone in, Discord in, whatever, that kind of thing.
Right.
And
keep that discussion open of why you can't.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because so like this last Sunday, for example, one of the players, his wife, she has to work 2 Sundays a year for her job, so she wouldn't have gotten home until I believe like 9 o'clock, which would
my wife's kind of got a gig like that too.
Yeah, so she was not going to be home in time to take over the kid duties. But my daughter loves the little kids, so he just brought the kids over and they had kind of an informal play date.
Nice.
So until his wife was able to swing by and pick them up. So
that makes sense too. Yeah, I mean that's the thing is that I think that having some flexibility and being able to do that stuff. I know that there was a comic I used to read once in a while where everybody in the group was an RPG player, but there was one guy who used to play with them but now lived in like Alaska or something like that. And was just a webcam all the time. I think it might have been Knights of the Dinner Table.
Okay.
And then they would, they would all be sitting there playing, and there would just be this webcam, and like the word bubbles were coming out of the webcam and stuff like that, and everything all the time. So it was, I mean, it's definitely something to look at if necessary. And you're playing yours. No.
Yeah, I've got 2 online.
Thursday night is
and my Tuesday as well.
Yeah.
Even though
people from all over the country,
right? Well, Tuesday is actually a lot of them are local, but it's
just easier.
It's easier, I don't have to worry about kids and So.
Whereas the other one, you've got people who are out in the West Coast and western part of the United States and stuff.
Yep.
So hopefully that answers your question, Tom. And hopefully that will help you to have some more fulfilling RPG sessions in the future. And also another benefit here, Tom, is that you're going to get a official my question was asked on the podcast t-shirt, limited edition.
Yes. So limited we're not even allowed to have.
I don't know. We don't. I have to wear this one.
I know. I didn't pick your question this week.
Well, I know I asked a question, but it wasn't a very good one.
I mean, yes, your cat is cute, but that doesn't qualify as a podcast question.
So the phone calls from junk mail. Anyway, if you've got a question for the tabletop or this ARC event or whatever the heck this is called,
podcast,
the podcast,
there we go.
GameFor Podcast is the name. Then you should definitely let us know either in the comments in the YouTube video here, or if you want to send us an email, you can send us an email at podcast.iamgamefor.com. And shoot us a message, or you could send us on Twitter or Instagram or technically we have a TikTok now. I
Yep.
don't really know how it works.
Yeah, that'd be yeah.
I mean, I think you could probably send a question on that. But nonetheless, yeah. And if we read your question on air, then we'll send you, just like we're going to send Tom, an official limited edition T-shirt. So we've been talking about RPGs here in Tom's question, but it kind of dovetails nicely into the subject of today's podcast, which is about getting started in RPGs.
Yeah, so we've done a few, or two already of getting started, I believe.
We did one about miniatures, tabletop wargaming miniatures, and we did one about board games.
Okay.
This is the RPG one.
Number 3.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, how do you get started in RPGs if you are into other tabletop gaming and want to explore this genre?
Well, first thing you do is you buy a $200 set of amethyst dice.
Yes.
That's not true.
No, you would start at least $250.
Oh, yeah, no, if you really want to roll well, yeah. I did not see any super expensive dice at the convention I was at, but I did see like a $60 set of D6s that were made out of metal. They were cool looking, but I was not prepared to spend $60 on
Right. Yeah, so the first thing I think that is kind of universal is find people that you are comfortable being around and gaming with. And, don't find people you can't stand being around.
Sure, that's important for a lot of things.
Or people that, like, if you're going to have a lot of anxiety and you don't feel that you can get over that anxiety, try to find people you're more comfortable with. Like,
I don't know that I'm an actually anxious person. I don't think I have anxiety. That being said, I don't think I could ever play an RPG at a convention with strangers.
Right.
Like, I think I would need, I would personally need to be a little bit more comfortable with the folks I'm playing with. And that's just me. I mean, that's the obviously there are plenty of people who love to play at conventions, because when we go to conventions, we see hundreds.
Yeah,
of
I've done that, but I also started younger, so I wonder if
I started in the 5th grade. I did play, but I just didn't play a lot.
But I was playing with at conventions.
Oh yeah,
at that age,
that's
so
true. Yeah, no, I was playing with my friends in the 5th grade, so that was a different story. That's a very good point. So yeah, and everyone's different. Everyone's got different kind of ideas on how, like, what the people are like that they want to play with, that kind of stuff. People have got different play styles.
Right.
There are people who do voices.
Right.
There are people who don't. I generally don't do voices, that kind of stuff. And again, it comes down to what makes you feel best,
right,
most comfortable, whatever.
And that's I think is the best kind of overall theme for this is do something that you feel comfortable doing. Yeah. So that you're going to have a better chance of having a good time the first time you RPG versus trying to, like, I'm gonna go down and I've got my character and that I figured out how to generate all on my own, and I'm gonna go join the local game shops D&D night that they've been playing for 3 years and jump right in and expect it to be the perfect time, and they're all going to sit there and clap afterwards of how well I did.
Right, yeah. I mean, the trick so many people, well, there are people out there who can jump into any situation and play and have no problem with people they don't know. They can just whatever, and that's fine. That all being said, it's, I think, kind of important to know that stuff up front, obviously, like we were talking about before, and because sure, you will find more games if you can play in any play style with any people, but you may not enjoy it as much,
right? And
so therefore it may not work out well for you.
So
finding the right group, and maybe that's the only group you have, and sometimes they're a little squirrely and they can't make it or whatever, and it's a little problematic. In my opinion, personally, it's better to play with those folks where you're really the most comfortable and have the best time than it is to play. It's a quality versus quantity thing. Yeah.
Another thing to keep in mind is you are not all going to be Critical Role. Like, your gaming session is not going to sound like, look like, feel like Critical Role.
Sure, right, yeah.
Maybe you get lucky and it is, or it's even better, but 99% of the time, what you see on YouTube and all that stuff is a lot more planned out and scripted than, and they've had a lot more practice than you will.
If you're interested in getting into role-playing and you've not done it before, there is probably a chance that you've come across Critical Role on Twitch, right? Well, and YouTube too. And so it's a group of RPG players who are
voice actors.
Frankly, all voice actors and other theater kid type people and stuff like that. So they've got a background in acting and doing all that stuff. They're all personalities. They're all interesting and funny and all that jazz. Most groups aren't like that.
Right. Most of the time when you game, your game master didn't write a book that's now a D&D campaign setting.
Right, exactly. Yeah, like a real one that's published by Wizards of the Coast. Right, exactly, yeah. But it is a situation of, this is not to say you can't have a good time with people who are playing and who are not actors and stuff like that. Right. It's just that show and other shows like it have become very popular and have made D&D 5th edition and other role-playing games more popular, but it's because they're very entertaining to watch.
Right.
Sitting and watching a group of friends, for lack of a better term, who are playing and having a great time, if you're outside the group, in most situations, it's not as much fun because they've got a bunch of inside, jokes and things like that, and things that they remember that happened in the past episodes or not episodes, play sessions. And so sitting there and watching it is not as much fun. These people on like Twitch and whatnot and all that kind of stuff, if they've got a big audience and been doing it for a while, they are entertainers. And so you're just watching a different form of entertainment. It's almost like watching people kind of like reading a radio show back in the when TV came along, they just started taking radio shows and just started televising people sitting around reading them. So it's like that, except that the story's being made up kind of on the fly. And that's really, it is entertaining for a lot of people to watch that stuff. But your group is not going to be like that necessarily, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that.
Exactly.
So definitely, I think going into it understanding that, I still have plenty of friends that I will bump into that I've played with in the past, or people that I've never played with but I know play RPGs, and they tell me stories about like a game session that happened last month or whatever and all that jazz. And it does definitely, it does make a lot of memories, and just because you're not a voice actor doesn't mean you can't do this.
Oh, yeah.
You're still going to have a good time.
Right. And then there's so there's two ways you can kind of get into this. You can get into this with a group of friends, and you're all getting into this the first time, or you're joining your friends' groups, or you're going to a convention or the local game store and getting in on one of their like starter nights or a low experience campaign.
Sure.
If you're doing the latter, feel free, and I suggest that you do is let them know that you haven't done this before.
Sure, yeah, no. Letting them know your skill level or your experience level is super important.
Because honestly they'll be like, oh, okay, this is, most of the time will be like, oh, that's awesome, and then they can help you out with the rules, and because a lot of times, in my experience is that if you're playing and you think everybody's kind of seasoned, you try not to. A lot of people try to keep away from rules lawyering with one another.
Sure.
It's about having fun, not particularly having the rules exactly right. I know there's people that will go against that, but if they know you're new, then they kind of can go, oh, it's okay for me to kind of coach them and stuff like that.
Sure,
versus, oh, he should know. He already knows how. He or she already knows how this should work. So
What about the stuff? I kind of made that joke about these very expensive dice, but like, when you're getting into it, what do you need to do, purchase wise?
Right, yeah. Don't buy everything. Don't go out and buy every Wizards of the Coast book if you're getting a D&D.
You want to have some dice, probably.
Yeah, some dice, or you don't even have to have dice though. You can borrow. You can use digital rolling.
That's true. Like if you've been given the offer to, hey, would you be interested in coming trying this out? Don't think, oh, I don't have any dice, so therefore, no, I'm sorry, I can't. Because A, they will probably have some dice you can use, and B, you're right, there are apps. Like I've got this great app on my phone, which is called Dice to Go or something like that, which I like quite a bit, and it's a dice rolling piece of software, and it works out real nice.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you're gonna buy some dice. At some point, if you get even vaguely interested in it, you're gonna buy some dice, but you don't need to buy the monster manual and the D&D or the DM guide and all this stuff.
Yeah, so
you technically don't even need to buy the player's handbook in the case of 5th edition.
Or player's guide or whatever it's called. Find out whoever's running the game is going to know what they think you need to have.
Yeah.
They might, and a lot of times they'll have stuff. They'll have the player's handbook that they've pretty much have memorized. So
sure,
yeah, here, borrow my player's handbook until you know that you're ready to commit to it, or maybe you're playing online, and like if you're playing like D&D Beyond and Roll20, you can share the GM actually can share their resources, so you can actually.
D&D Beyond is a web based kind of site where you can you can have your character sheet on there.
Yep, your character sheet. A lot of the rules are there.
And it stores it on the cloud and all that jazz. Yeah.
But all the supplements are like campaign settings, stuff like that. You can download.
And Roll20 is more of a for when you want to play online with people who are in different locations.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. It has the map and all that.
Right. Yeah.
And dice rolling there too. So
finding out if the group that's asking you is interested for you to join, finding out like because I guess there's a possibility that some groups are like, nope, you have to have this and this and this. But if they're like that, you may not want to play with them.
Right.
That's fine. It doesn't seem like they're super necessarily necessarily to newbies.
And that doesn't say you can't go out and buy a bunch of stuff, but
sure.
If you're like, I'm definitely going to get into this, I just don't know. But
so dice is probably a slam dunk.
Dice in the player's book
in many situations
is usually what you want.
In Dungeons and Dragons, especially 5th edition, you have 3 main books, and they've been around for a long time. Mm-hmm. They change obviously from edition to edition, but it is always the player's handbook, the monster manual, and the dungeon master's guide.
Right.
You would really only need the player's handbook.
Right. Yep. If it's a group, like again, if it's a group of friends, none of you have played and you want to get into it, they have like a starter set, a bunch of starter things for like D&D and like Paranoia has it. I know there's Pathfinder, I believe, has it.
And there's a lot of also games where the entire game is just one book.
Yeah, or even like a single PDF.
Sure, exactly. Yeah, there's a lot of, especially indie games that are like that too. Definitely. Bigger companies are usually separating that out, partially because they want to sell more books a little bit, but also because it gives you a little bit more of a la carte options. Like if you don't ever want to be the DM, then don't buy the DM book.
Right.
If you ever never going to play this particular campaign setting, then you don't need to buy that one. But you might buy this one if you're interested or whatever. So bare minimum, show up. Maybe make sure you've gone to the bathroom beforehand, had something to drink, whatever. That's basically it. Everything from dice on up, it's something that you can tackle without having to go out and drop a bunch of money, which is one of the benefits I think to a lot of people like in RPGs is because, like I'm a big tabletop war gamer. You buy these models, you kind of need them to play.
You're usually going
to then you have to put them together and then paint them and all that jazz. Whereas we could start playing an RPG like literally right here.
Yep.
Well, no, my phone's over there, so I'd have to go get my phone. So we had some dice, but other than that, we kind of do it. Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. And if again the caveat, unless it's a group of friends and you're all new, don't try to GM your first time through. Don't try to be the one that runs the game. Try to be the player.
Yeah.
A lot less rules you have to understand. A lot less stuff to get going, and
it's
the prep.
Kind of hard to be the boss from the get-go.
Right.
Yeah. It's important for anyone who's getting into RPGs to start by being a player and then move into being a DM. When I was a kid, and we started trying to play. Like this was, in the 80s, and we didn't have anybody else around. So we I think I was a DM, and then some, that was mainly kind of partially, but we were basically just 5th graders messing around and stuff. And we weren't really, we were having a good time. I'm not going to say we weren't playing it right, but we were sort of not playing it right. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But these days now, because there's so many more groups out there that you can find all over the place and you can get together, it's a good idea to get experience as a player before you move into a role.
And if you have to, if you again, you don't have the option, and you are going to be GMing your first time out, there's a lot to go look for, like pre-roll campaigns, which will usually kind of coach you. This is what to tell the players. This is what to read. Here's what you're doing.
Simplify. Yeah, absolutely.
So another tip. Don't become the half bard, half rogue, half dragon,
3/4 gnome.
Yep.
Right.
Character that it was raised from the dead 2 days ago, and
kind of simplify.
Vanilla classes. So
fighter,
your classes are
a thief or whatever.
Yeah. So your classes are really kind of like what your character's like job arc is usually kind of. Are you a magic person? Are you a pilot?
And different RPGs have different ways of handling classes. There are classless RPGs even out there, but if you're getting into a game that's one of the more slightly popular ones, like Dungeons and Dragons, let's say, you have some simple base classes that have been around since that game started.
Right.
But a lot of times they also do, especially once you've got some games under your belt, you could play a character that is what they call a multi-class character. So you might be a fighter, magic user,
right,
or whatever. I mean, you might be a rogue paladin. That doesn't make any sense, but technically, I suppose you
could.
Yeah. So, you can kind of do this multi-class thing, and there's all kinds of other stuff. Do they still do what were the other types of weird classes?
Oh, like I'm an arcane trickster rogue. And
no, but
like
they used to call them, like when I used to play Neverwinter Nights on the computer, you'd be playing like a certain role for a while, and then all of a sudden you'd get like some sort of upgrade. It was almost like you were emphasizing
right. Yeah, there's specialties and stuff. So yeah,
specialties maybe. It was
yeah.
And
then that's kind of what, like I'm a rogue, but I also can, because of the path I'm on, I can cast spells.
Sure,
in one of mine.
Arcane. Yeah, I get that.
So, but yeah, that was not the first character.
This was not your first rodeo. You've been doing this for a while.
So I understood what I was doing and what I needed to keep in mind when I was doing that. It's a lot more to manage, a lot more things I have to keep in mind when I do stuff, but it kind of added more flavor for me. It's it's like you don't go out and cook a very complicated 7-course meal the first time you learn to cook. You cook spaghetti.
Sure. Exactly. Yeah. It's taking it in baby steps, and I think it's important to understand that. And you may have other people in your group who are far more advanced, experienced in the game, and they may have all kinds of crazy multi-class characters and stuff like that. But there's nothing wrong with you just being a rogue or a I don't know, a cleric.
Unless it's a bard. Nobody likes the bard. No, I'm just kidding.
But yeah, so those types of things I think are pretty important to pay attention to, because once you get that experience under your belt of figuring these things out, then you can then move forward and start
adding spice to it. Yep.
Spice, that's a good term. Yeah.
Another is choose the RPG that has a setting that interests you. If you do not like elves and dwarves, do not play Pathfinder in D&D, most likely.
Yeah.
If you're, like I said, I was talking about Lancer earlier, like if you're like, mechs and fighting in space. And
yeah, that's not so bad.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
And nowadays there's so many licenses that are out there that you can, you like Firefly, you can be in the Firefly.
Yep, it's a Firefly RPG.
Star Wars, Star Trek.
Alien. Yeah, there's a bunch of those. But there's also tons of stuff that are not licensed as well. I mean, the Pathfinder folks have now got a sci-fi game called Starfinder. And there's horror RPGs out there.
Right.
There are, I mean, if you're not interested in, say, fantasy type stuff,
like,
again, elves and dwarves and all that kind of jazz, then getting into a group just because you want to play but you may not enjoy. I mean, there's a possibility that you may not enjoy it just because you haven't tried it before, or you haven't used the right type, or whatever the deal is. And so, you do this, and then all of a sudden you're like, actually, this is pretty cool, or whatever. Or maybe a movie comes along, I was not as interested in fantasy at all until like Lord of the Rings movies came along, and then I was like, oh, that's actually pretty cool, or whatever. So, but that kind of stuff I think is kind of important, because if it's especially something you're going to be spending a lot of time on going forward, then you want to make sure that you're at least interested in the subject matter.
Right.
Yeah. And like you just said, there's so much available.
Oh yeah, I think it just as many ways there's movies. I mean, there's present day. There's like 1980s. There's the one I was looking at that you're basically like Roswell. And happened like it's more like X-Files.
X-Files kind of along the lines.
Yeah.
I know there's one that's like basically like James Bond type movie, with all of even the little bit of the campiness and kind of silliness. Nice. So maybe a little bit more Roger Moore kind of era, as opposed to, let's say nowadays with Daniel Craig.
Right.
But yeah, it's there's tons, if there's a subject out there, someone's probably made a role playing game for it. Generally.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
Apps and web pages and other digital means, assistance like
for your like character sheets.
Yeah, to keep track of your characters and all this stuff. So like we mentioned, like D&D Beyond.
I've used that one. That one's really, it's like just even on an iPad, it's spectacular.
Yeah. Like I said, Lancer, that they have a website. It's not the prettiest website, but it's building the character. Like if I had to build the character without it, it would have taken me probably several days, and I was able to basically do it without reading the rules.
Yeah, see, that's the big benefit, I think, to those types of things. I mean, back in the day when I first started, it was just all pen and paper, pencil and paper.
Right. And calculations and figuring out what these numbers are. Now it's like,
but if you didn't know exactly how to actually build the character, it was very difficult. And now a lot of times you've got step-by-step guides that are going to show you kind of how to do it.
Yep.
And also keep track of everything. And when you've done this, it'll, I took this much damage, and maybe in this particular game that means that you lose a point of Constitution. Well, you don't have to worry about calculating it and keep track of it. It takes track of it for you, which is really super helpful. That's why we have computers, as it turns out.
Yeah, so I know that I've got a couple players in my Sunday group that I use the digital means just because it's easier for them to keep track, and I've got another one that's using just straight paper, and so you don't. It doesn't have to be everybody's using it. It's
right, and
whatever.
it's a personal preference as well. You're right, because some people do prefer the pencil and paper kind of situation. But yeah, I definitely like the digital thing. That's really nice. Yeah, and there's tons of them out there. Obviously, like there are ones that are specifically designed for specific games, very frequently designed by the people who design the game. But then I think there are also just even apps out there that can be used in a lot of different ones. I mean, you could even go down as far as the road is just like, well, it's like the pen and paper one. It's on my tablet.
I'm using a spreadsheet. Or
exactly. Spreadsheets. People use that stuff too, definitely.
Another thing to think about for the RPG is you try out a couple different play styles. And this one might sound a little strange. I'm trying to figure out how to explain it best. But like for me, I found that if I make a character that is very similar to me, like personality-wise, so like whether I'm evil or good or whatever.
Sure.
If I pick evil, then it's just exactly like
basically that's a Tuesday.
Right. But I don't have as much fun, and I have a hard time kind of role-playing the nuances of that character versus if I do someone that's complete 180, that's very different. I have an easier time of like kind of getting into that character and role-playing and understanding like the drives and stuff like that. But I know other people that they're like, well, I need to base it on real experiences. I have a hard time doing it when I don't understand the character. So kind of find out where that mix is, and then
there are people out there that want to play opposite to type, opposite to the way that they are to some degree, and there are also people out there who want to try to play just kind of a little bit like their own personality.
Right.
They can, I think I aim a little bit towards the latter, where it's more my like closer to kind of who I am a little bit. But it is, again, knowing that going into it helps a bunch, because then you kind of know what kind of character to help. To build with your people when you're first starting out.
Maybe you're shy and this person's very confident and charismatic and everybody loves them right away and makes friends easily, or you can play that shyness and have fun. And
and it totally depends on what you're comfortable doing, really. Yeah, absolutely.
Another thing, when you're getting into a new group or joining a group or even starting a group, another good thing to talk about right from the start is whether or not like side chats and stuff like that, like metagaming, outside gaming stuff is allowed, or like what level is, like if we're in the middle of a narrator monologue and they say something and someone cracks a joke, is that okay that everyone kind of plays off of that, and everyone's just having a good time, or is that really going to annoy everybody and just breaks the
and every
the setting and
dynamic is different in that situation, because you've got one of the reasons that RPGs can take a really long time to play is because you end up not focusing a lot on the RPG in some game sessions, because you're talking about some new movie or something that happened on TV or something that happened, whatever. And so, you get sidetracked that way. So that's one thing, just joking and having fun and talking and socializing, which is the point to some degree. But some people are like, let's get this back on track.
Right. We've spent all night. We have not rolled a single die.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Trying to figure that stuff out, and the balance there is important. But then there's also, you're right, there's also another aspect to it, which is the
the method.
Metagaming is known. It's a term that's used in RPGs about, your character wouldn't know that. You know what I mean? Playing to what your character would know.
Right. Your character's not smart enough to figure that out, or
like you've been paying attention to what the DM has been saying, or you've been playing RPGs long enough that you have a suspicion there's probably a secret room in here somewhere,
right.
And whatever. But your character might not know that. So metagaming is when you go step outside of your character and go, well, I think I'm going to try this and this and this, and then the DM can call you on it. Like, that's kind of the point.
Yes, yeah. Some groups are like, no, that's fine, whatever.
Sure.
And then some are like, no, that's
right.
That's not it, and I will punish your character for doing that.
There are some DMs that don't even like the characters or the players to talk to each other and coordinate unless they're doing it like in character.
Right.
So like if
they're basically like method actors.
Exactly. To some degree. Like if you're sitting there, like you're in a tavern, and the tavern owner is not giving you the information you want, and then I turn to you and go, well, do you think we should, like, I don't know, like hit him in the face or whatever? You've got some DMs that are like, okay, they're having a conversation about what to do next, but you've got other ones that would be like, did you just say that out loud? Because that's going to make the tavern owner a little unhappy. And you'd be like, no, I was just talking to Matt. And then, so, yeah, knowing that going into it, again, with the play group is
and
important.
sometimes you're a jerk DM and you'll just be like,
yeah, sure, right. And
get out of my
respond.
Yeah,
exactly. You'd be like, no, I was just talking to Matt. I wasn't in game. And you're like, well. So yeah, those things are important to know about the group as you're getting into it, and what type of play style you want to get into. How serious we're talking about here, how much we're just trying to have fun. Lots of different things.
Right.
And there are a lot of different levels to that for people.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And all are correct for those people.
Exactly. You just want to all try to be real close to being on the same page within the same group. That's what really makes the game fun, is when everybody is kind of trying to work towards the same goal.
Mm-hmm.
If you've got one person who's constantly trying to derail things in a group, if that's cool with the group, great, because maybe that's just the personality of that character. Maybe it's the personality of that player.
Yeah, right.
But like when we used to play here at the office a while back, like Eric's character was just drunk all the time.
Mm-hmm.
He was like a drunken monk.
Yes.
And so he would do things that a drunken person would do, which were not necessarily conducive to getting what we wanted to get done. But that was the case, and we were basically cool with it.
Yeah, and I kind of knew that going in, so I kind of had planned, I would kind of almost pre-plan for what he might get into hijinks, so I knew kind of how to roll with it, so that sometimes it would actually help the group out.
Exactly. But if you've got someone who's constantly just trying to derail just to be a jerk or whatever,
that's usually when the GM or DM needs to step in. I had to do that one time, and I could tell that it was causing friction in the group, and bring it up and let them know, and it got changed, and then everybody was having a good time again.
So that kind of stuff, it's also important as well to understand the group dynamics, just being able to understand working together in a group, because you're basically just trying to tell a story and have a good time.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Interactive storytelling adds a entertainment value. So.
Absolutely. Well, is there anything else that you think we need to talk about for how to get into role-playing games?
That's all I could come up with.
Okay.
So there might be some more that other people have to.
Yeah, absolutely. If you've got some ideas about some, how to get into role-playing games, or tips or tricks, and if you're watching this on YouTube, let's say, you can feel free to put them in the comments below. If you want to tweet us or things like that, we can try to retweet those things. Maybe if you've got a good idea that's something we didn't touch on here, that's definitely the case. You can email us, and maybe we'll bring it up in another episode going forward. That kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But role-playing games are definitely, like right now, of the four genres, you've got your board games, your role-playing games, your collectible card games, and your tabletop miniature games. Board games and RPGs are easily the top two as far as how many people indulge and how many people like to play.
Yeah, and I would say RPGs kind of hit a pop culture resurgence in recent years. Like Critical Role.
Mm-hmm.
I know, like Big Bang Theory, they started doing it, and
it wasn't like the final episode of the Big Bang Theory, like that season, or that show had been running for like 10 or 11 years or something. And the final episode, there was like
one of the final,
like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Will Wheaton,
Kevin Shatner,
William Shatner, and a bunch of them sitting around playing 5th edition D&D.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, that's a zeitgeist kind of a situation right there, definitely. So they're very popular, and so a lot of people are asking and wondering about how to get into them.
Stranger Things.
Oh yeah, Stranger Things, totally. Yeah, that's super popular as well. So it's out there in the society, and a lot of people are wondering about it. So if you've got a friend who's been talking about getting into it, you want to share this with them, feel free to do so. and I hope we can help them to kind of step into the role-playing game genre and start having some fun. Well, I think that's it for this week.
Yeah.
Thanks again for listening to this episode of the GameFor Podcast. If you've got questions or comments and you're watching on YouTube, please leave a comment below. If you're listening via your favorite podcast player or you just aren't into the whole YouTube comment section thing, then you can feel free to reach out to us via email at podcast@imgamefor.com. You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and TikTok, which we'll make a second TikTok eventually, but we've got one out there in case you're interested.
We do?
Yeah, it's one of you.
Oh,
yeah.
I thought you were kidding. Oh.
No, that's totally out there.
Oh, boy.
You're a TikTok star now. Lastly, to find out more about the GameFor platform designed to connect tabletop gamers, please check out our website at www.imgamefor.com. That is www.imgamefor.com. Thanks.